so many stories that have been made up about me. I've heard I've dated a father and son before.
Not true?
What if the wholesome image of America's favorite TV dad was just a mask, hiding some of the darkest secrets in Hollywood? As the shocking trial unfolds, Steve Harvey and his stepdaughter Lori are being dragged into a scandal that could end careers, destroy reputations, and expose the disturbing truth behind Diddy's infamous parties. The courtroom atmosphere shifted dramatically on the second day of Sean Kolb's trial, as disturbing accounts of sexual misconduct, chaos, and brutal violence began to surface. At the center of this emotional storm stood Cassandra Ventura, the prosecution's most crucial witness, finally stepping forward to share her long-awaited testimony. Things began to spiral when AI chatter pointed to a 3-month timeline, 3 months of tension. Then a quiet social media breakup. That's when suspicions started swirling. Many believed they knew exactly who was behind the sudden silence. Now, veteran entertainer Steve Harvey finds himself under intense scrutiny. Caught in the crossfire of a legal storm involving Sean Diddy Combs and allegations that stretch beyond tabloid gossip, court proceedings have unearthed disturbing claims that could become a permanent part of public record. Steve's name has been floated alongside Diddy's since the earliest whispers of this case. Speculations suggested he wasn't just an observer but potentially a participant in Diddy's controversial private gatherings. Even more jarring are the rumors linking Steve's stepdaughter, Lori Harvey, to these alleged events. Whispers say she was offered up for exclusive access into the industry's elite circles, a deeply unsettling accusation as court testimony unfolds. Secrets once buried may soon come to light. If even a fraction of these claims are proven, the reputations of those involved, Steve Harvey included, could take irreversible hits. Talk of scandalous behavior, including allegations of inappropriate acts during private parties, has sparked outrage and disbelief. Questions have also emerged about supposed video evidence and what role, if any, Lori may have played. Steve is reportedly scrambling behind the scenes, calling on legal and PR reinforcements to brace for what could be a career-defining storm once official transcripts hit the public domain. Meanwhile, the public's attention is sharply focused. Lori and Diddy's past connection is being re-examined with fresh eyes. At one point, the two were romantically linked despite a considerable age gap. Despite earlier rumors that Lori had previously dated Diddy's son, Justin, it was a relationship that left the internet in disbelief. Photos from family vacations, including a high-profile trip to Italy, where Steve and Marjorie Harvey joined Lori and Diddy, only fanned the flames. Body language in those images spoke volumes, more intimacy than you'd expect from a platonic family gathering. From Diddy caressing Lori to Steve's seemingly approving smile, the optics raised more questions than answers. Then came the ringer, glimmering, diamond-studded clue. Lori denied engagement rumors, but her silence on the deeper controversies left room for speculation. What started as a celebrity romance quickly morphed into a tangled web of high-stakes rumors, legal implications, and family dynamics that may never be the same again.
In the midst of all this P. Diddy scandal, I forgot about this. These two were the most random couple that had came about. I remember when these two publicly came out that they were together, everybody was looking like, Steve Harvey daughter and him? The family trips. And I love my girl Lori, but even that, I was just like, was I the only one that...
As whispers grew louder in entertainment circles, a controversial theory began to surface that Steve Harvey may have encouraged his stepdaughter, Lori, to get closer to Sean Diddy Combs shortly after Diddy's breakup with longtime partner Cassie and the tragic loss of Kim Porter. According to this theory, Lori's presence in Diddy's life wasn't just a coincidence, but a calculated move designed to place her at the heart of a powerful circle, and Steve, allegedly, was orchestrating it. Publicly, Steve has spoken in protective tones about any man dating his daughter, once quipping, "Whatever you do to her, I'll do to you," a familiar fatherly line, humorous, yet stern. But behind the scenes, critics claim his actions may have contradicted his words. Allegations suggest that Lori was drawn into a dynamic far more complex and troubling than a simple romance. According to these claims, Diddy wasn't interested in a genuine relationship. Instead, He allegedly sought someone to fill a specific, more disturbing role in his private life, someone who wouldn't or couldn't say no. And some say, that power imbalance may have been rooted in what Diddy allegedly held over Steve himself, compromising material from their long-standing friendship. It's a claim that sits uncomfortably in the public imagination, a father allegedly pushed into silence, a daughter pulled into a world she may not have fully understood, and a powerful mogul at the center of it all. The pattern being whispered about is not new. Older men in elite circles, allegedly trading access and influence by involving younger women in questionable arrangements. The idea is unsettling, and yet, it lingers. Further fueling suspicion are reports of Diddy's infamous parties. These weren't casual get-togethers, but ultra-exclusive events where rules blurred and boundaries were often tested. According to ongoing lawsuits and witness accounts, some of these gatherings pushed far past the limits of social decency, with guests handpicked for their willingness to indulge, or at least, to remain silent. These so-called after parties weren't just entertainment. They were, allegedly, orchestrated experiences. Some claim they were environments where nothing was off limits. Attendees reportedly included high-profile figures from across the industry, and while Steve Harvey's presence at such events was once dismissed as playful or eccentric, him dancing in viral videos, spinning in circles, new scrutiny suggests there may have been more going on behind the scenes. Now, as legal proceedings gather steam and more individuals come forward, a fuller picture may emerge. Questions that were once laughed off are now being revisited with urgency. What was really happening at those gatherings? Who knew what and when? And if these claims hold weight, what will accountability look like? There had long been quiet murmurs behind closed doors, rumors that Steve Harvey's close association with Sean Diddy Combs went far deeper than the public ever imagined. Some speculated that Steve wasn't just a friend, but someone who helped manage Diddy's image, stepping in when controversy crept too close. With his public persona as a wholesome, God-fearing family man, Steve's presence offered a convenient shield, one that, some say, helped to keep certain secrets from seeing the light of day. At the time, it must have felt untouchable wealth, fame, and influence wrapped in a bulletproof aura. But that illusion was shattered the moment federal agents arrived at Diddy's private estate on Star Island. Fully armed and unannounced, Homeland Security swept in with tactical force. No warning, no leaks, just determination to uncover the truth behind an explosive investigation into alleged human trafficking, spearheaded by the Southern District of New York. Live news footage captured the surreal sign-black SUVs, armored trucks, agents pouring into Diddy's mansion, and while Diddy himself was reportedly blindsided by the operation, it was the contents of that home that would leave even seasoned investigators stunned. What agents allegedly discovered was far beyond what anyone had prepared for. Hundreds of bottles of personal lubricants, adult devices, weapons, and an extensive archive of explicit recordings. But these weren't just private tapes. They reportedly documented interactions involving not just Diddy, but also recognizable figures from across the political, entertainment, and religious spectrum, engaged in behavior ranging from bizarre to potentially criminal. As word of the raid spread, panic rippled through elite circles. The fear wasn't just about what was taken, it was about what might be exposed. That fear, it turns out, was justified. Reports now confirm that portions of those recordings are being submitted as evidence in court. The first week of the trial has already delivered more shocks than anyone anticipated. When the prosecution played clips from the seized footage, the courtroom fell silent. Jurors sat frozen, visibly disturbed. Even the judge tasked with neutrality couldn't hide his reaction. The content was graphic, the implications massive, and then came Cassie, the woman at the center of it all. Once seen as Diddy's longtime partner, stepped forward as the prosecution's key witness. Her testimony landed like a thunderclap. She spoke not as a victim, seeking pity, but as someone determined to release years of buried truth. Cassie shared how her relationship with Diddy began with love and trust but quickly veered into darkness. Within months, she was introduced to the concept of what he allegedly called FreakOffs, private gatherings that often spiraled into days-long sessions of control and exploitation. According to her, these events weren't consensual pleasure, they were enforced performances, driven by manipulation, fear, and chemical coercion. She recalled being pressured to take powerful substances like MDMA and ketamine, substances that blurred the lines of resistance and will. In one particularly harrowing account, Cassie described the aftermath of a violent episode. A fellow participant recalled hearing slaps through the walls and finding her trembling. That moment, he said, made it clear that what was happening wasn't consensual, it was abuse. Even under cross-examination, Cassie remained composed. Exhibits showed her casual responses to Diddy in text messages. But prosecutors argued that these didn't reflect safety, they reflected survival. Behind the controlled tone of her texts, they said, was a woman navigating a dangerous reality. Her testimony painted a disturbing picture of power wielded to control, of luxury masking trauma, and of a culture of silence that allowed it all to continue until now. Cassandra Ventura's testimony painted a heart-wrenching portrait of control, degradation, and emotional devastation. She recounted incidents that went far beyond the boundaries of consent, acts she described as humiliating, painful, and psychologically scarring. She spoke of being pressured into disturbing scenarios that left her feeling dehumanized, substances applied to her body without consent, being subjected to degrading acts during moments when she was at her most vulnerable, and being pushed into situations that stripped her of both autonomy and dignity. One of the most distressing aspects of her account involved what she described as being forced to participate in intimate encounters even during times when she physically or emotionally could not bear it, including during her menstrual cycle. She said she was treated not as a partner, but as someone who existed to fulfill another's desires, regardless of her own comfort or well-being. Her words revealed not just physical trauma, but deep emotional and psychological manipulation. She expressed feeling suffocated under Diddy's constant control. His approval, she said, was a moving target, withheld or weaponized depending on the slightest shift in her behavior. A missed phone call, a misread facial expression, or a simple complaint could trigger explosive reactions. Despite being signed to a 10-album deal under his label, only one record ever materialized, a decade-long period, during which she claimed her creativity was stifled and her opportunities were tightly gatekept. According to her, every step forward in music, modeling, or acting hinged on his permission. One phone call, she said, was all it took for him to end her career. Over time, Cassie described becoming hyper-aware of his moods, constantly monitoring herself to avoid setting him off. "Watch your face," he would reportedly say if she didn't smile the way he wanted. "Watch your mouth." This wasn't just about image, it was about dominance, control, and fear. At times, that fear turned physical. She described beatings that left her with black eyes, swollen lips, even injuries severe enough to require a plastic surgeon. Staff members, including assistants and security, weren't just bystanders, they were allegedly part of the ecosystem that enabled the abuse. If she didn't answer her phone, someone would be sent to find her. Privacy was a luxury she says she no longer had. Her testimony also detailed how her appearance was micromanaged, from nail colors, always white or French tips, to tanning, waxing, working out, and the pressure to consider surgery. She felt every part of her body was curated to someone else's desires. These demands weren't just superficial, they were a daily reminder that she didn't belong to herself anymore. The most haunting part of Cassie's story is how normalized it all became over time, how the lines between fear, survival, and silence blurred. Her words weren't just about a relationship gone wrong. They were about a system of power that trapped her, manipulated her, and erased parts of her identity in the process. The more details emerged, the clearer the picture became, and for many, it was disturbing. The way she walked, the way she spoke, even how she was expected to act during these so-called sessions within Diddy's infamous gatherings. Every part of her presence seemed scrutinized and shaped by an unsettling system of control. These sessions, insiders say, were just fragments of something larger. A single encounter might be just one act within a series of orchestrated events, what some described as FreakOffs. Multiple sessions, sometimes 3 or 4 in a night, would make up a single experience. The imagery shared in court was overwhelming, layered, and emotionally difficult to process. It didn't take long before speculation turned toward others who had once been in Diddy's orbit. Among them was Lori Harvey. Her connection to Diddy, and by extension, his private world, sparked intense debate, particularly when questions arose about whether she may have also been present at any of these private events. What fueled public concern even more was the belief that, if she was involved, she may not have had the support she needed to step away. Allegations swirled that her family, the very people who should have protected her, may have pushed her closer to Diddy, not away from him. Photos from a now infamous trip to Italy seemed to solidify their connection. Diddy was seen vacationing with Lori, Steve Harvey, and Steve's wife, Marjorie. It wasn't just the group's presence that raised eyebrows, it was the body language. Diddy whispering into Lori's ear, her hand resting gently on his face, these weren't casual family photos. They suggested something far more intimate, and then came the uncomfortable twist. Many remembered that Lori had previously been linked to Diddy's son, Justin. If true, that history only added to the confusion, and for some, concern. Was this merely an odd coincidence within celebrity dating culture, or something more troubling? Lori Harvey, too, became a figure of speculation. Rumors painted her as fiercely ambitious, someone who, according to whispers, was unafraid to make controversial moves if they promised power or access. Her past relationships have also drawn scrutiny, with reports suggesting both of her former partners had connections to criminal investigations, though none of those ties have resulted in formal charges against her. The lingering associations have given critics ammunition to question the origins of her lavish lifestyle and her ascent into the upper echelon of celebrity society. She's been photographed with global elites, seated front row at couture shows, and flaunting high-end luxury that, to some, feels curated not just for status but for calculated influence. Despite being painted as Steve's elegant and graceful wife, there's another portrait being painted in tabloids and online forums. One of a woman who may have wielded quiet but powerful influence behind the scenes. Some allege she pushed for key business decisions, steered her husband's brand evolution, and maintained a tight grip over how the Harvey empire was presented publicly. As for Steve Harvey, the public image he cultivated wise, warm, comical, and deeply rooted in family values now faces uncomfortable re-evaluation. For years, Steve was seen as the beloved uncle of the entertainment industry, a man who rose from poverty to create a media empire spanning stand-up comedy, books, talk shows, and syndicated radio. But in the shadow of these recent headlines, that charm is being reinterpreted. Some now wonder whether that persona was carefully constructed to cover up truths the public was never supposed to see. With serious allegations now circling his inner circle and longtime friends, questions are emerging. How much did he know? And did he play a role in any of it? Steve's silence on these swirling rumors has only deepened curiosity. His public statements have remained polished and unbothered, often dismissing negativity as a byproduct of success. But silence, as history shows, can quickly be weaponized by the court of public opinion. In this moment, where accountability is demanded, from even the most untouchable public figures, fans and critics alike are demanding clarity. The Harvey brand, built on wholesome masculinity, fatherhood advice, and moral uprightness, stands on a precarious ledge. If any thread in the fabric begins to unravel, the entire legacy could begin to fray. As the legal case surrounding Diddy continues to unfold, speculation grows around whether Lori Harvey, Steve's stepdaughter and a celebrity in her own right, could be called to testify. If so, her story might add even more complexity to an already tangled narrative. Lori's proximity to various high-profile figures in entertainment and business has long drawn attention, but now it could carry legal consequences. Her silence, so far, has been noted, yet if she's subpoenaed or voluntarily speaks, her perspective could shine an unexpected light on events the public doesn't fully understand. Is this the beginning of a broader reckoning? A long overdue peeling back of carefully curated public images, or the final chapter in Steve Harvey's carefully managed legacy? One thing is clear. The facade of perfection surrounding the Harvey name is beginning to show cracks. And what emerges next may not only redefine their family's reputation, but also shift the entire conversation around celebrity accountability, legacy protection, and the cost of fame when secrets refuse to stay buried.